Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to share the stage with you, Mike. It's the first time I think we're doing this together.
Yes, it is.
I hope it's the first of many times. I think I wanted to really start and thank and acknowledge you for the inspiration that you've had on Metaplanet and really on so many other Bitcoin Treasury companies out there. Wouldn't be possible without your leadership. I'm reminded of a conversation that we had at the beginning of the year, ahead of our shareholder meeting. And you said that our companies are cheerful revolutionaries in the capital markets. And I think now that rings louder than ever, particularly as we are looking to embark on our own journey for perpetual preferreds following Stretch and Strike for the Japanese market. And I think at that time you said that traditional equities are valued based on the capital that they hope to have in the future, future cash flows, where we now have an opportunity really to be valued based on the capital that we have, digital capital that outperforms the cost of capital. And so we're on this mission together. It's inspiring to see you do all that you do in the US and beyond, and we hope to have an opportunity to do the same in Japan.
Thank you. Thank you. So Simon and I have something in common. We're the two largest Bitcoin treasury companies in the world. So our company pursued a strategy of accumulating digital capital. Bitcoin is digital capital. And what do you do when you have capital? You issue credit against it. And we started issuing credit. And Simon's company has accumulated the largest amount of digital capital in Japan. And they're the largest digital treasury company after us. And they're also now starting to issue credit against it. So I guess, Simon, I think the most interesting thing for the audience would be if you describe Metaplanet, but primarily describe the balance sheet of Metaplanet and describe the capital markets in Japan, like the credit markets in Japan. What's the state of bank credit, treasury credit, corporate credit, junk bond credit in Japan, mortgage credit in Japan? And then talk about your latest credit instrument you just did and your plans in the future, because I think that'll be interesting to people here.
So the Japanese capital markets are relatively sleepy when it comes to anything like a perpetual preferred. Yields are incredibly low. Japanese investors virtually have no options. Money market funds are finally returned to the market recently, and people are incredibly excited about 50 basis points. And so the opportunity we have is really to connect the Bitcoin world with one of the largest pools of savings in the world. There's $7 trillion of cash sitting on personal bank accounts, bank balance sheets earning nothing, and corporates have another 4 or 5 trillion. And so there's a ton of capital there that has been, I suppose, accustomed to deflation for a long time. It's okay to keep cash in a bank account because next year you're still able to buy goods and services for the same price. But that is now beginning to change.
So Simon, if I'm a Japanese family and I put my money in the bank, so what kind of yield do I get?
0.
You get 0. Did they ever go and invest in foreign markets, like in US dollar markets, to try to get 5 or 6% or something? What's the thinking in Japan about, do I leave the Japanese currency to chase after yield, or do I just sit on 0? And by the way, can I buy corporate bonds? Are there any ETFs in Japan, corporate bond ETFs or junk bond ETFs or mortgage-backed ETFs that pay more than 0? And what are those like?
The highest yielding products now are effectively REITs, so you can buy those. A real estate investment trust, the REITs. If you're a sophisticated Japanese investor through your broker, you're able to access foreign markets, but it's relatively kind of few and far between. People just like to invest in local companies, and the main function of that is because the disclosures are in Japanese, and so
culturally. And then they're probably afraid to take currency risk too, right? Because that could really hurt you.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that. And so there is an opportunity really for us to transform that market, to offer something which is different to what
So
what
does
is
that mean
available
that a typical retail investor or a treasurer in a corporation in Japan is pretty much settled for zero?
Yes.
Zero.
Yes, they're accustomed to zero. I think they're
Okay.
now desperately looking for yield. And so being able to offer an instrument that pays them 10 times better than the money market rate is something that will definitely resonate very well.
Tell us what you're planning and what you're thinking.
Sure. And so we announced a couple of weeks ago our version of Strike, which we're calling Mercury. It's a perpetual preferred. It pays 4.9% in yen and has convertibility into equity. We think right now it's probably one of the cheapest call options on Bitcoin out there. And in the meantime, you get paid a nice 4.9%, which may not seem as attractive in the global context. But when you're competing against bank deposits in Japan that are earning nothing, or money market funds that are paying 50 basis points, this is 10 times higher than that, and also has the convertibility into equity. I think the real product market fit is Stretch. And I wish, Mike, you had launched that only a month earlier, because then we would have done a shelf registration for that sooner. We have a shareholder meeting coming up at the end of this month, and that's when we will be doing a shelf for our version of Stretch.
And what are you going to call it?
We're calling it Mars, the Metaplanet Adjustable Rate Securities.
So I wish I had the name Mars. I think that's really cool. MicroStrategy Adjustable Rate Security. So if I had done it earlier but not changed the name, we could have stolen Mars, but probably it's better that you have Mars.
We are leaning into the planetary theme, so there are quite a few other planets that you could take first.
Our ambition will stretch all the way to Mars.
Indeed.
Okay, so tell us about the preferred stock market in Japan and the regulatory issues and how deep is it or not deep and what you're thinking and what you've learned along the way.
If I share too much with you here, are you going to try to do the same in Japan?
No.
You've heard it here.
Not in the next 12 months. I'll give you a 12-month head start.
Well, I certainly think that if we do the hard work of educating the regulator and get our preferreds launched, it will be easier for you to come to the market. Hopefully you can welcome us to the US at some point as well.
Absolutely.
So currently there are only 4 listed prefs in Japan. Incredibly sleepy market. It's a massive capital market, and why is there only 4 listed prefs is a big surprise. There has been one other company, ANA, the airline, that has announced their own pref. They'll be the 5th, but our goal is to be the 6th and the 7th with Mercury and Mars. It's an incredibly exciting time, really, for us to be that bridge between all that cash sitting there and the Bitcoin market. We have shareholder meetings that we convene probably more regularly than we otherwise would. We really want our shareholders to buy into to the pivot that we made from last year. We've had 5 shareholder meetings since April. And each of our shareholder meetings are literally like rock concerts. There are 3,000-4,000 people in attendance. And a typical Japanese shareholder meeting, no one attends. It's what we call a kabuki theater. There's 5 or 6 people that show up, no questions are asked, management doesn't want to answer any questions, and before you know it, all the resolutions have passed. But we really want to embrace the fact that we're onboarding Bitcoiners into Japan. We now have 212,000 unique Japanese individual shareholders, and these are people that didn't know about Bitcoin before they discovered Metaplanet. And so we feel we have this really important goal, a higher calling to bring the love of Bitcoin to Japan. And again, it's thanks to you, Mike, for all that you've done. It makes it very easy for us in Japan to be able to point to strategy and say, this is what a large, successful company in the U.S. has managed to do in the U.S., and Japan wants to be an American ally and do the same in Japan.
A funny aside, before we discovered Bitcoin, we had a shareholder meeting and we had one shareholder show up. One. So if you're wondering how far we've all come. the big innovation of digital credit is putting together, a number of innovations. The first innovation is use digital capital, Bitcoin, to back it. The second innovation is you put it in a preferred equity instrument that's perpetual. The third is you take it public. And the fourth is you put a shelf registration on it so you can continuously sell it. And if you do all four of those things, then you've created this perpetual liquid digital credit instrument that is 2 to 4 times better than traditional credit, and you can sell it without the credit risk. In the US, we've got pretty well-defined regulatory paths to do shelf registrations. Our company, by the way, we were writing in the preferreds, and there were already thousands of preferred stocks because banks issue preferreds, and so there was a much bigger preferred stock market when we launched. Although the reputation in the industry was very sleepy, and they were like stodgy. And I don't think anybody had ever put, it was almost never heard of that you put a shelf registration on a preferred stock. So we were combining an equity idea with a preferred equity idea. And as I've gone to other parts of the world, I've noticed there are some regulators where they'll say you can sell the preferred stock, but you can't implement the shelf registration until a year or 2 years after the preferred is trading. And that would cripple the adjustable rate security, so it's very tricky. You've come up with pretty creative ways to actually implement continuous selling in Japan. You want to describe how you do that and how you think about it? And then also, what is your time frame to launch Mars? I think that's interesting.
And so we were looking for a way to execute an ATM in Japan after Strategy was doing that successfully in the US, and we sadly discovered that there was no ATM structure in Japan. And so we came across a fundraising mechanism that a lot of small and medium-sized companies in Japan avail of, which is effectively a moving strike warrant. And so that's how we've raised most of our equity kind of so far over the past 18 months. And that is something that you can theoretically do on a pref as well. And so we would be looking to do a moving strike warrant on our perpetual preferred. We just announced a pre-IPO of our version of Strike. So our Mercury, we've now issued. The goal is to get that listed in Japan early next year. I'd like to give you an exact date, but as you know, with the regulator, there are a lot of steps that one needs to jump through. But I feel quite confident that we can tick all those boxes and get the instrument listed in due course. As I said, the best product market fit is Mars. That's something that we'd like to do kind of closely thereafter. It is something that I think the Japanese market would really, really like, having a high yield bank account, something they can purchase in their securities account, and have something that has a stable price that pays a yield that is far higher than they're used to seeing.
So ultimately, the appeal is if you can put together digital capital with a preferred, make it publicly traded, find a way to feed liquidity in the market, adjust the dividend rate variably, and then manage the shelf registration to provide liquidity but trim the volatility. If you put all those things together, you can create this magical digital credit instrument. Mars would be the third. Strive created SATA, the second, and Stretch was the first. My impression is, there'll be over time a dozen or a few dozen Treasury companies that'll create this kind of credit, and it'll be good for the market because the more people offering it, the more enthusiastic the credit investors will be. How are you going to market your credit instruments in Japan? And do you have any thoughts about where you issue credit instruments in the US or anywhere else? What's your idea there?
I think the Japanese market is, it's one of the largest markets in the world. We would like to be, the player in the Japanese capital market. That's our primary focus at this point. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to expand in Asia. But I do, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think there is a need for that many Bitcoin treasury companies and that many issuers of digital credit. The most important thing is having a substantial balance sheet of Bitcoin. And you now have more than 3% of the global supply. Our goal is to get to 1%. Still, quite the way to go from here. But we've said we want to get to 210,000 by 2027. It is an important thing that we're all doing here. It's
So your focus is going to be to provide digital credit in JPY, in yen?
That's correct.
And dominate that market. And if we ever want to provide bank accounts that pay 6% or 5% or 7% in yen, you're going to need that digital credit instrument to do it. And it's like marketing, working with regulators, building the capital base, getting the instrument listed on the exchange, getting it liquid. And that you have to be laser-like focused on that, which I applaud. So I asked you a lot of questions, Simon. Do you have any questions for me?
So I'm one of your followers on your X account, and I see over the past 3-4 days, you somehow have managed to be in pretty much every country in the region, taking a nice selfie with a beautiful backdrop. Can you share with us a bit about who you're meeting, the types of conversations you're having?
I think that this entire region is much more pro-digital assets and pro-digital transformation than most other parts of the world. The two things about the Middle East that stick out, they like technology and they like money. And so if you believe in digital transformation and digital technology, and if you're interested in money, then the digital transformation of money and digital transformation of capital markets and equity and digital banking ought to be very interesting. So I've been obviously meeting with all the sovereign wealth funds. I've been meeting with, 50, 100 different investors, hedge funds, family office investors that are interested. I've been meeting with banks and people that own banks or run banks. I've been meeting with fund managers that offer financial products. I've been meeting with regulators in every jurisdiction. And I think, and my message, by the way, is very, very straightforward. My message is, we now have digital capital. Bitcoin is digital capital, is digital gold. On top of digital capital, we have a new asset class called digital credit. Digital credit strips the volatility from the capital and provides yield, income. So the simple idea is, if you have a 5-year-old kid, you can give them $1 million worth of land in Manhattan, that's capital, and tell them wait 30 years and then maybe they'll be rich, but there are no cash flows. Or you can give them a credit instrument that pays them $10,000 a month forever, starting now. And so most people want the credit instrument. They don't want the capital instrument, even if the capital appreciates at 30% a year, and even if the credit only pays 10%. That's okay. They'd rather have 10% non-volatile than 30% volatile with no cash flows. A treasury company like ours, like Metaplanet, like Strategy, exists to convert capital into credit. Once you understand that, then you have 3 ideas: big, bigger, and biggest. The big idea is you take your sovereign wealth or your wealth and you buy digital capital. If you don't trust anybody, you buy digital credit. If you think Bitcoin is a real thing, but it's too volatile for you, you're just going to get 2 to 4 times as much as traditional credit. and then you get the first 10% of the return risk-free. Just buy the credit. And then if you believe in the idea of digital credit and you want amplified Bitcoin and amplified exposure, you buy the Treasury company. You buy the Metaplanet, you buy the strategy, you buy the equity, and you strap on for the rocket ride. It's going to be very volatile, and you're going for the next trillion-dollar stock. And so if you want that, you buy the equity. Otherwise, you buy the capital or you buy the credit. So that's the big idea. The bigger idea, you're like, there's a bigger idea, which is you have a bank, and so have the big Emirates Bank, First Bank of Abu Dhabi, Bank of Bahrain, the Kuwait Bank. Have the bank custody Bitcoin, custody. Everybody talks about self-custody for the bank in the country. Buy Bitcoin, have your bank custody the Bitcoin, and then start to offer credit networks on top of the Bitcoin. And if your bank offers people SOFR plus 50 basis point loans on Bitcoin, then there are $2 trillion of digital capital going to 20 trillion, and you will attract 5 or 10% of it, and you can attract $1 trillion or a few $1 trillion to your bank in your country, because right now most big conventional regulated banks don't handle Bitcoin. They don't extend credit on it. So integrate digital capital into your banking system. That's the bigger idea, because then you're going to have big Bitcoin holders wire $27 billion of Bitcoin to your bank overnight. They're all going to come to you. And then I end with the biggest idea. The biggest idea, instead of getting 10% of $2 trillion, why don't you look at the traditional credit market, which is $200 trillion? Look at bank credit in Japan that gives nothing. Look at credit in Europe, gives nothing. Look at Swiss credit, gives nothing. Look at the money markets in the euro that pay 150 basis points, or the money markets in the US that pay 400 basis points, or the corporate bond market, which wouldn't exist if people weren't so disgusted with their bank account. The only reason you buy a corporate bond or a junk bond or private credit or mortgage-backed security is because your bank account doesn't pay you 6% or 8%. And so the biggest idea is create high-powered digital money. You might have heard that phrase, high-powered digital money. It was used by Satoshi. He said the future is corporations holding Bitcoin to create high-powered digital money. The way to create high-powered digital money is take digital credit, whether it's Mars or SATA or Stretch, and create a fund which is 80% credit, 20% currency, lay a 10% reserve buffer on top, strip away all the volatility, take it to vol of 0, and offer someone, you don't have to offer them 10% dividend in Stretch, offer them 8% dividend in a bank account, do it with a regulated bank, endorsed by the bank regulator, and now I just wire my money to the bank of whatever, the bank of Dubai, the bank of Abu Dhabi, the bank of Bahrain, the bank of Kuwait. I wire you my billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars, and you pay me 8% interest every day, 0 vol, in a regulated bank, powered by digital credit, which is in turn powered by a treasury company with 5x as much digital capital, over-collateralized. So if you offer digital bank accounts and digital money accounts, then you could presumably attract $20 trillion or $50 trillion. Why wouldn't everybody with all the money in Europe or Africa or South America or Asia or Japan or Australia or Canada or the US just send all their money to your country? And your nation will be the digital banking capital of the world. Your bank will be the biggest bank in the world. Your customers will be delighted. And you can decide if you want to keep 50 basis points or 100 basis points or 200 basis points. You can even adjust the risk and the yield and the liquidity by increasing the currency from 20 to 30 or 40, or you can play with the buffer. But, you know, if the banks in Japan are offering 0 and you offer 400 basis points, and if the banks in Europe offer 0 and you offer 500 basis points in euros, and if the banks in the US offer, they're going to be offering 300 basis points in a money market or 200. Offer 100 to 300 basis points more. And what I would say is, what is the perfect product? It's not the iPhone. You need to be awake and be able to see and hold the iPhone. The perfect product is a bank account with 0 volatility that pays you 400 basis points more than the risk-free rate in your favorite currency. And if you're a financial engineer, the Sharpe ratio is the return minus the risk-free return divided by the volatility. And when the volatility goes to 0, the Sharpe ratio goes to infinity. If you want the lightsaber of money, the laser beam of money, the nuclear fusion reactor of money, it's going to be a digital bank account. And the innovation is going to be digital capital, digital credit, a digital fund plugged into a digital account blessed by a regulator. I don't have a country. It's above my pay grade. I don't have a bank. But you have a bank. The people I'm talking to have banks, and they have countries, and they have regulations. So I'm not saying they're going to do it. It's really a free-for-all. The question is, who wants to be the Switzerland of the 21st century and attract all the money in the world? And the answer is going to be whoever appreciates money the most, wants the money the most, that understands technology the best, that is willing to take a courageous stance of conviction with a degree of clarity. That is the opportunity. And that's all the conversations have been extraordinarily energetic, enthusiastic, and I couldn't be more excited. I think it will happen somewhere in this region. We'll see where.
Well, it's wonderful to be front row of innovation as we see a transformation in the capital markets. I think our time may be up, but it's been a pleasure sitting alongside with you, and look forward to doing a lot more together.
I'm delighted to be on the journey with Metaplanet, with Strive, with all of the Bitcoiners and all the Bitcoin Treasury companies and everybody that supports the space. Everybody buying our stock, everybody shorting our stock, everybody buying the credit, everybody arbitraging the credit. We love you all. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you very much.